Hello, everyone. Welcome to Southeastern 14, the live reaction show. And it is live, Chris, because Arkansas making things interesting with LSU right now in Baton Rouge.
Yes, Arkansas is. I'll tell you what, the nightcap games, that and South Carolina, Mississippi State, and I'm doing this. I'm Mr. Dad alone this weekend with a 9-year-old boy. So I'm managing that and watching two crazily entertaining games at once. I mean, I don't know how much you've got a chance to keep an eye on South Carolina, Mississippi State, but that one has been
Will Rogers found the old Will Rogers tonight.
oh, well, he found Tulu Griffin a few times, and Spencer Rattler's found Xavier Legette a few times, and one that just keeps going back and forth. So I'm in the office now, and so I can only do one TV at once. I might be able to pull up something on the screen I'm watching for a second game, but I don't want to kill the bandwidth here and find out the wrong way. But yeah, these are two tremendous night games that I've been watching at the same time.
No doubt. Let's start with the early games. Vanderbilt, Kentucky, that was one that right off the bat, it looked like Kentucky was just going to boat race them. Vandy tried to make a little bit of a comeback with Devin Leary kind of giving them some gifts, a couple bad throws by him, but they end up taking it late and end up wearing them down. Ray Davis punching a couple in. So what were your thoughts just in general real quick on Kentucky Vandy?
Yeah, I was in the press box for that one today. I'm not making this up for laughs. This is the God's honest truth. My brother took my son after his flag football game this morning, and he threw up, and they had to leave after 20 minutes, which kind of summed up that game today.
So was that the play of Vandy, or was that
I think that was all of it. I think if you didn't see the score, Kentucky had 2 pick sixes, and then another one in which A.J. Swan threw a pick. Kentucky got the ball in the 11-ish and scored again. But, I mean, that was a game where neither quarterback was very good. Vanderbilt is obviously playing A.J. Swan while he's hurt. You saw him grab that elbow a few times today. I don't know why they didn't go to Ken Seals earlier, but both those teams were awful. And so that was how I spent my afternoon, and then caught the second half of Ole Miss and Alabama, which was interesting in its own right. And then again, like I said, now got my eyes on Arkansas and LSU, which is now tied, and again, trying to watch some Mississippi State and South Carolina as well.
Yeah, and Georgia and UAB are playing right now. Georgia trying to punch it in to make it 35-14 here. And I put out a tweet not long ago, Chris. I said Georgia fans shouldn't be too riled up about this one, because UAB is a team that has a decent amount of talent, and maybe right now as much talent as Auburn does. After what we saw with that performance, that could have been a lot worse in College Station. Auburn is not a very good football team right now, and definitely on the offensive side of the football.
Yeah, I think you got a few teams in this league that have got quarterback and offensive line problems, and I think Auburn at least has got a quarterback problem. I didn't get to see much of that. I was watching it a little bit on the press box. On my computer in the press box. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that I missed a whole lot. I mean, Connor Wegman, I guess that injury isn't too severe.
No, I mean, but Max Johnson came in and looked phenomenal. He was in rhythm. How cool is this? Hit his brother for his brother's first touchdown reception. So Max Johnson to Jake Johnson. It was a very cool moment. You know that Brad Johnson and his wife had to be super thrilled with that. That's just a neat moment. And Max Johnson just continues to do this, Chris. It doesn't matter if it's at LSU or if it's at Texas A&M. His number seems to get called, and he comes in and doesn't miss a bat an eye, and comes in and just makes plays. And he's a guy that, he's going to make an errant throw every once in a while, and he's going to airmail one. But my goodness, it was really, really bad. Yeah. Andy Stowe says, well, Blayne, if Auburn isn't good, what are they? Hashtag hot dog water. No doubt. They were 2-day-old hot dog water today. It was awful out there. And we kind of saw, I think one thing we're starting to see here, Chris, is throughout this season, with the rare exception of teams like LSU, of course, with that unbelievable performance they had against Mississippi State, and now they're struggling, doing everything they can to try to beat Arkansas, who lost to BYU last week. I think most of these teams, they're telling us who they are early on, and we saw that Auburn was a team that was going to struggle when they went out to Cal and couldn't score on that Cal team and turned the ball over a lot. And a lot of those same issues plagued them in that game against Texas A&M.
Yeah, I just don't think we got an elite team in this league right now, Blayne. I mean, Georgia is not exactly overwhelming UAB tonight against a 42-point spread. LSU was, an 18-point favorite in a dogfight with Arkansas, which, of course, lost to BYU last week. I guess you were thinking that maybe Ole Miss would take a step forward. I thought Ole Miss would go to Oxford and win. That did not happen. And I guess if you're Alabama, you're probably feeling a little bit better after today. You found a little bit of an identity on offense. The defense certainly showed up today. If you're Ole Miss going, hey, we're just stuck in this territory seemingly forever, because I thought this was Ole Miss's year to beat Bama if that was going to happen. But, yeah.
Saints for Christ Nation, he says, does Kentucky have the second best defense in the SEC? I think that defense is pretty sporty over there. I don't know that I'd call them second best. I think Missouri is really, really good. I know Georgia's is right up there as well. Tyler Sprouse says Ole Miss let him down today. Let me and Chris down too. We picked the Rebels.
Yeah.
Thought that they would do well, but hey, that's that it happens. It happens. No, but Kentucky, you saw it firsthand, Chris. Kentucky is a defense that is opportunistic, and also they just fly around and are physical like a Mark Stoops defense is.
Yeah, I think during that conversation, I think the teams are Georgia and Alabama probably in that order. So maybe in the conversation for third might be a better way to put it.
Right there with Missouri, maybe.
Yeah, and I don't know how much stock you put into that today, because Vanderbilt is just a bad football team. And so, but I mean, Kentucky really got after the passer today, forced a lot of those mistakes. So, yeah, I mean, I think they're really good. I just wouldn't. I'm not going to go there based on today, given who Kentucky was playing.
How about Florida and Charlotte? Was a 20 in their dogfight with Charlotte right now. Charlotte has the ball. They're about to punt it away, I think, on their own 2-yard line. But 19-7, Florida has not been able to run the football the way that you would thought they would, and they also weren't able to run the football against, the way they were able to against the Tennessee team. Now, I know it's a classic let-me-down spot, Chris, and also they've had some offensive linemen out due to suspension today, and also to injury and things like that. But still, not a impressive performance by the Gators after a big win last week.
No, it's not. And I think you nailed it. It was fairly predictable. You look at the box score, Florida's pretty much statistically dominating this game in yards more than it is on the scoreboard. But I mean, look, you had the big win against Tennessee next week. You got a huge road trip to Kentucky. 28-point favorites against Charlotte as LSU just scores a touchdown. Malik Neighbors with the catch there in the corner of the end zone. I don't know. I don't ascribe too much of that due to the circumstances.
Yeah, and you also mentioned earlier, you said there's not a dominant team in the league. Well, I will say this. I don't think we've seen all the bullets of the Georgia Bulldogs yet, because I have not seen a list of injuries as long as theirs is.
Yeah.
Out for this game. Roderick Robinson, one of their freshman running back who's had a lot of carries this year, out for this game. Kendall Milton, Javon Bullard not playing in this game. Ladd McConkey still out. Amarius starting right. I got a browser going over here. I don't know if you heard that. Austin Blasky is 6 offensive linemen out. Defensive lineman Terry Ingram's Dawkins out. I mean,
yeah.
And two tight ends out that they were counting on playing this year, and Pierce Sperling and Lawson Lucky. I mean, goodness gracious, that's a lot. I don't care if you're as deep as Georgia, even as Georgia is, that's still a lot of injuries there, Chris. And I think we'll see some more of those guys come back into the fold when SEC play really gets cranked up next week when they go to the Plains to Auburn.
Yeah, and I wouldn't hit the panic button on it for the same reason you just said. You had a lot of teams in this league banged up today. And next week, again, we've been circling that weekend for a long time. That is the first weekend where it's slowly SEC on SEC action. I think you had a lot of teams in spots for a letdown this week. And that probably explains some of it. Yeah, some of these just weren't good games. I don't know how else to
in
put
the
it.
chat right now, they're saying, and I'm not watching the Missouri game, they're saying that Luther Burden is out with an injury right now. So that could be big developing news down the line as Missouri, is working on that Blake level special over there. His bold prediction of them starting off the year 5-0. And they're working their way towards that right now. But Chris, that would be a mental blow to Missouri if Luther Burden is out for any kind of extended amount of time. If anybody has any information on that in the chat, please put it in there. But we'll talk about it right now, Chris. I mean, that's just a significant playmaker in a team that is really trying to make some noise in the SEC East.
Yeah, I was going to say he is far and away their most significant offensive player, and I went to the box score tonight to see what that looked like. I did see that catch he had earlier in the game where he juked about half the defense, but Missouri's got 292 yards through the air tonight, and he's got 173 of them by himself. So, yeah, that would change things.
Yeah, absolutely. It said Tyler Prowse says he went back to the locker room. So, it is interesting to see how attrition. It's a war of attrition this SEC season is, Chris, and we're not even fully really into it yet. As you mentioned, next week getting all the SEC on SEC games going all at the same time. So my goodness, it's going to be a long year in terms of health wise and things like that. And as much as I don't like the new clock rules, what the whole goal of that was to try to decrease the amount of exposures, as they call the opportunities for guys to get hit, get hurt, things like that. And I just think it's the way they're going about it that leaves a bad taste in people's mouth because the games are shortened, but the commercials are still there.
The games aren't shortened. The games are not shortened.
The number of plays.
Yes. Well, I was watching that at Vandy, Kentucky today, and I looked down. It is 1:45. The game was supposed to kick off at 11 o'clock. It kicked off at 11:03. We had 87 plays in the game. We're midway through the third quarter. I've been harping on this all year. It's awful. We can put a man on the moon, but we can't fix that. I think it's silly.
Yeah, Jeff Roy says he was happy Bama looked better in the second half. Listen, 17-21 for Jalen Milroe. He makes a couple of throws every now and then, and you're going to have to live with this if you're an Alabama fan, where he basically makes up his mind before the ball is snapped where he's going, and that's where he's going to throw it a couple of times. But I thought he did a good job of taking what was there for the most part and being able to connect on a couple of those deep shots. He's able to extend plays tremendously with his legs, so that's a big deal. They just have to continue to work things. Chris, I saw a couple of quarterback sweeps. Like they just said, hey, here's a lead blocker, go out and run, do things of that nature. And I think they're going to have to just continue to adapt this offense to fit around him. But listen, one thing you can say about Alabama, they're starting to get big performances when they need them from running backs. And that was something I said that they needed going into that USF game. They got one from Roydell Williams in the second half of the USF game last week, and they got one from Jace McClellan today.
Yeah, really liked what I saw McClellan in the second half, and Milroe's line was not very good rushing the ball. I think it was 16 for 28. And the issue that you're going to have with that is he's their best quarterback, and anytime you've got a guy like that and you're putting the ball in his hands to try to make plays, you're going to get hit more. And it's one of those risk reward things where Alabama, I think the offense is going to be better if it's run that way, but you're also putting him again at risk to getting hurt. You saw what happened when they didn't have him last week, but I think you've got to go all in with that hand because Alabama has already got its back against the wall to win, to make it to the playoff. And I think he's their only hope. I think those are just going to have to go hand in hand going forward.
No doubt. But what I'm saying is you don't have to do a ton of design, but he's going to naturally get just on off schedule stuff. He's going to scramble and he's going to make yards and be fine. But every once in a while, sprinkling in a little design run for him, I think will help out that offense a little bit. But hey, they're getting better. They got guys that can make plays. That was a good defensive performance by Alabama, especially with Deontay Lawson going out with looked a knee injury, during that game. So it is it's getting it's getting interesting with some of these injuries. But listen, Ole Miss, Jackson Dart did not play as well as I believed he would. Wasn't as consistent as he needed to be. But the biggest problem with that Ole Miss and Arkansas has gotten loose here. They're getting into LSU territory as we're watching this 31-24 Arkansas 31-24 LSU, Arkansas on the move, 9 minutes to go in the fourth. But what I was saying about Ole Miss, Chris, is we talked about this with Tennessee against Florida last week, and we talk about it now with Ole Miss against Alabama. Those offenses are predicated on being able to run the football first, getting the tempo going. And I think they had 53 yards rushing today against Alabama, just not going to get it done and allow Jackson Dart and that offense to get in the tempo they need to.
Yeah, and Quinshon Judkins rushed for 56 yards today. You figured if they're, I mean, I guess he didn't have to have a huge day for them to win, given the way Dart had played. But with Dart having an off day, they needed that. They didn't get it. This is now 4 games in. He's yet to have a really good game. I mean, Harris was out today. I'm sure that hurt Ole Miss a little bit too. But yeah, it is what it is. We wondered how everybody in Oxford will react if they couldn't beat Alabama today. Just not a very impressive offensive performance for Ole Miss. And again, that they can't get their best player going.
Yeah, no doubt. You got Justin Holland with the super chat here. We appreciate it, Justin. He says, "Why is Vanderbilt so broken?" I'll leave that to you, Chris.
Oh man, how long we got? I just didn't like anything I saw out of them today. Swan is, again, if you missed it earlier, he's obviously, to me, he's playing hurt. I think that's a mistake. They can't run the ball. Their secondary was a little better today. And I didn't, on the Kentucky side, I didn't like what I saw from Leary today. Missed some throws. They're just not good at anything right now. They couldn't even get the best part of their team, which was that receiving trio, going today. Those guys were non-factors. I don't know. That game, if you didn't see it, felt more lopsided than the final score.
Yeah, it seemed bad. Oh, Arkansas touchdown.
Oh, you're ahead of me. There it is. I think the best 2 games of the year in the SEC are both going on right now, in my opinion, unless I'm forgetting one.
Well,
coming back.
It was a penalty. Oh, my goodness.
Offensive line problems pop up again for Sam Pittman. I'm presuming that was on the line. I didn't. You're a little bit ahead of me here.
Yeah, it looks like a holding call. This was
on the left, on the tight end?
No, I think it was on, I don't know. They may have called Limmer. I got the sound off.
They're showing Bo Limmer. So, yeah.
Andy Stowe says this was the year for Ole Miss to beat Bama. If they couldn't do it this year, they never will. It seems kind of that way, doesn't it, Chris?
Well, never's a long time, especially in this day and age of the portal and all those other things. But it did have that feeling a little bit.
Yeah, but KJ Jefferson comes right back with a strike down the field. So Arkansas is, I mean, you're right. This is one heck of a game, and they're really, really getting after it here.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of reacting to the Auburn and Texas A&M game, I know we said Auburn was really bad, but at what point do you think they say, "Hey, okay, we're not going to go with Peyton Thorne. We're going to go with either Robbie Ashford or Holden Garner, and we're just going to go forward and see what we can do with a guy who can be there"? Or do you think they stick with Peyton Thorne? What do you think happens with that? As bad as that quarterback play and as bad as that offense looked today against Texas A&M?
Well, my gut feeling is now would be the time. That's without really knowing how good those guys are behind him. I mean, we really haven't had the discussion on anybody other than Thorne and Ashford. And for, remember a couple of weeks ago, the discussion was it's time for them to go to Ashford. Well, that hasn't worked out when he's played either. Here's the problem, Blayne. They play Georgia next week. Is that who you want to break in your quarterback against? Because that would seem like a really good way to kill confidence.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to have to stick with Thorne, but my goodness, it was just unproductive. They ran the ball okay, but not as when you have the lack of explosivity in the passing game, they're going to have to be much more dominant in the run game, and they just weren't today. That's really all they could try to do. Justin Holland with another super chat. Can Vandy keep its elite young stars if the year ends like he thinks it will? Do you think those guys will portal out there, Chris?
I haven't heard anything like that, but look, there's all kinds of opportunity to play. If you're young and talented, it doesn't always assure you a chance to hit the field. But boy, at Vandy, you got opportunity right now because they are struggling.
No doubt. It's not a place that's devoid of opportunities to see the grass for sure. It's just another thing is we're in the age of NIL, Chris, and when it comes down to it, can Vanderbilt, pony up enough money to keep some of those guys? Because as you talk to Gavin Schoenwald every day on the Daily Show, he said, hey, that's a real thing. People are in your DMs. People are telling you, hey, why don't you come transfer here and stuff like that. And a lot of it's going to come down to, is there enough NIL to go around type deal?
Yeah, they're going to have to figure that out. I know if you watch their games, of course, you see all the construction, all that, and then they're doing facility stuff that they needed to a long time ago, but the game's changed. And I think they're way behind everybody. It's hard to get transfers into that place, way harder than anywhere else in the league. So I think that you're going to have to build you that way if you're Vanderbilt through your young guys, and maybe it's time to clear the bench and give those guys a shot. Speaking of shots, Arkansas just took one of the end zone and missed.
Yeah, Tyler Sprouse tells us that Luther Burden is back in the game for Missouri, so that is good news for the Missouri Tigers. One of the better players. Oh, I think they called roughing the passer. Roughing the passer. So Arkansas's drive is going to continue here as we look onto this. So Missouri is driving. They've got the ball on their own 23-yard line, 3rd and 12. As I'm watching this right now, 4 minutes to go in the third quarter. You got Georgia now up 42-14 on UAB. So there you see that talent and that depth, even with the amount of injuries that Georgia has, that is wearing on the Blazers. And I wasn't being facetious, Chris, when I
Haas
said, hey,
is having a night, isn't he?
No doubt. Arkansas, Luke Haas for another TD, had a 59-yarder earlier, this one of the 11-yard variety. Now, Chris, when you talk about this offensive performance for Arkansas right now, this is the kind of deal that puts a little bit of equity in things for Sam Pittman. Even if Arkansas, which I know they're definitely want to come out on top on this, but even if they come up short, I think this makes people feel a whole lot better about this team going forward for the rest of the SEC season.
Yeah, and if they don't come up short, this really, really throws a wrench in the SEC's playoff hopes because –
well, Arkansas could be in the driver's seat to win the West.
Yeah, among other things, yes. I mean, I'm not ready to go there yet until they get a healthy Rocket Sanders back, but
well, I'm saying if they beat LSU without a healthy Rocket Sanders.
Yeah, and when do we think he's coming back? And how healthy is he when he comes back?
Yeah, unreal what it can mean. But this season, Florida State goes to overtime with Clemson after Clemson looked like a pile of hot garbage against Duke in the opening week of the season, and FSU just wiped the floor with LSU in the second half. I just think it's like you said, all of college football is a quagmire right now of above average to not quite elite teams right there that are just fighting it out for position. And I think it's every single week you have to come and bring your best effort. And the thing is, it's been inconsistent single team inside of games, not just for an entire game. Or there's been moments in each game where I think you look at these SEC teams and say, wow, that was really good. And then 5 minutes later, wow, that was awful. I mean, is that a correct observation there, Chris?
Yeah, and to your point, here's where I was going to go next, right? We sort of wrote off that week 1 game that LSU lost is, okay, it's week 1, they're playing a great team. And I don't take any of that back, right? But where did LSU get killed in that game? Secondary bus. And I'm seeing Arkansas guys running wide open a good bit of tonight.
Oh, yeah, the Arkansas has not had this much separation all year, and that's facing teams like Kent State and Western Carolina. They were blanketed in those games. But you look at this tonight, and you see Arkansas having passed for 289 yards on LSU tonight.
Yeah, 8 incompletions so far.
Andy says that I've done that 20 times tonight talking about Georgia. They're good. They're not good. It's like that going back and forth. I mean,
but that's everybody in the league though right now. I mean,
that's everybody in college football.
Yeah. I mean,
and I think some of it, Chris, has to do with Cole. I heard Cole Kublik and a couple other guys talking about this. The lack of physicality now in fall camp and preparation and stuff like that. I think you have to build up a certain callus to football, to getting hit, to being physical, to things like that. And I think it's taken longer and longer with some of the restrictions that are being put on these teams in terms of that, trying to make the game safer, stuff like that. And as some of those rules are implemented and as some of these things happen with lack of continuity, with guys moving to different teams, not being able to practice together and, a ton before they start playing, I think you're just seeing some lapses and some mental lapses and also just some poor execution across the board for the most part.
Well, and you also see, you hear this over and over. Coaches are afraid to push players and piss them off for fear they'll hit the portal. So I think it's a combination of a lot of things.
Well, like tonight, Georgia, that they had opportunities with Carson Beck missed a wide open Jackson Meats running straight down the middle of the field where it should have been an easy touchdown, on a post. But then Arian Smith, the guy who made the biggest play arguably in Georgia's season last year in that comeback versus Ohio State in the 70-something yard touchdown that Stetson Bennett threw to him, Carson Beck throws one, it hits him in his hands, he drops it. Dominic Lovett for Georgia has had a couple drops tonight, and we know how talented and how good of a player he is. I mean, Chris, it's just like, okay, if one thing's going well, the other end of it doesn't execute, So I don't understand what that is, but like you said, it's not just them; it's a lot of teams around the league.
Yeah, and here's something that just occurred to me with Georgia, right? I don't really know if we're going to know how good that defense is until November. And this is why. Auburn next week. Auburn's not scaring anybody offensively right now. Kentucky next week. Kentucky got 45 today, but again, 2 of those were pick sixes. Another one of those was a pick run back to around the 10. Points on the platter. And Leary did not look good at Vandy or the week after that. Then a bye next. I mean, when do we find out what Georgia is against a good offensive team? I mean, I would have said November 11th with Ole Miss. Got some questions on that after today. Tennessee next to last week of the year. I think Tennessee will test them, but
maybe
I'm looking at that schedule, and it's not full of offensive juggernauts.
No, it's not. And I think Georgia's going to get healthy, and Georgia's going to that depth and that just having number one recruiting classes year after year, Chris, is going to stack up. And towards the end of the year, some of those guys who were newer in their roles are not going to be newer in their roles anymore. People still forget that Carson Beck, like next week, is going to be his first ever road start ever. Next week will be his first ever road start in college. So, he's going to get a couple of these last firsts that he has out of the way. And then I think, but you can't blame anything on Carson Beck except he has missed a couple throws. Yes. But when you talk about his stat line for the most part, 22 of 32, 337, 3 touchdowns, Chris. And that's with missing a couple of deep shots. I mean, he has been efficient. He hasn't been like a just dominant QB in terms of there's been a little bit of accuracy here and there in terms of just, hey, putting it on the right shoulder, making sure you hit the layup, stuff like that. But he's going to get better. They're going to get those running backs healthy. Right now they have 2 scholarship running backs healthy on that roster. I mean, it's just mind-boggling for that kind of stuff. Kirby Smart said in his press conference it was the most injuries he's ever had during his tenure going into a game at Georgia. So you just have to take some of this stuff with a grain of salt and see what's going on. Best case scenario for Vandy is 4 wins, is what Dan Rudloff asked here. Appreciate you being a member, Dan. Guys, you can be a member and you can also send us a super chat if you would like to, like Dan did. So Chris, that he's saying UM and Auburn, is that the best case 4 wins?
I mean, I don't know. I guess he means, is that Missouri?
Yeah, Missouri.
Or is that the University of Mississippi? I think looking down their schedule, best chances for wins are probably next week and probably Auburn. Because I think stylistically they're teams that they can match up with better. They're not super explosive offenses. So you get a low-scoring game, you have some breaks go your way, you got a shot there. But I'm not super optimistic they're going to beat anybody at this point.
All right, okay. In the fourth quarter here, Mississippi State just got a punt or a kickoff back from South Carolina after South Carolina kicked a field goal. It is 30-27 right now in that game. So, and as we're talking, also LSU driving on Arkansas. So 2 good games, as you mentioned, going on here. So it is a packed night of SEC football, and we are just excited that you're here with us. Hit that like button while you're in here. Throw in a super chat. We'll be on for about another 10-15 minutes talking reaction here to SEC. Look at this outside the league. Notre Dame up 14-10 with 8 minutes to go on Ohio State. So that has some SEC implications, Chris, because like I said, even though I doubt it with the SEC not being impressive in the non-conference this year, that takes any kind of – if Notre Dame were to go on and finish with 1 or fewer losses, then they're going to make a playoff, and that takes any kind of chance of a two SEC teams getting in out of the picture.
I'm kind of rooting for chaos. It would make things fun, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah.
Rather than this, you feel like teams have already got tickets punched, and you're just waiting for who's the last one. I had to turn off.
Wouldn't this be a great year for the 12-team playoff?
That was my next thing. I had to turn off my TV temporarily because the Roku was overheating. So I'm gonna fire LSU and Arkansas back up. LSU was driving. Now here's the question I've got. LSU's got the ball at the 28. I don't know that you want a field goal here. Well, now not the 28 anymore. I think you play for a touchdown here because I don't like the way my secondary is playing right now. If I'm Brian
but
Kelly.
Arkansas has no timeouts, and now they can run this thing down. They're right at 2 minutes now, so they may be able to run this thing down and salt it pretty much all the way.
Okay, well the timeout thing I didn't know, so that might change things a little bit.
Arkansas has 0 timeouts, and now it is under 2 minutes. They'll snap this ball. LSU will with 1:41 on the game clock. So that there will be virtually no time, and it'll be a field goal to win it. But they did call a timeout just now. Oddly enough, LSU did. So
did they let the play clock, and then even let the play clock run down all the way.
Nope, 1:44.
Just gave away 4 seconds there, 3 seconds.
They're going to need a turnover is what Arkansas is going to need right here. They're going to need a Seth McLaughlin special. And when I say Seth McLaughlin, Alabama, that is a problem for them. They continue to have bad snaps from McLaughlin to Milroe. I mean, he snaps it over the dude's head once or twice a game, every game. It is unbelievable. Or he rolls it back there. And that guy has been around forever for Alabama. And I do not understand. He has a bad snap or two, like a seriously bad snap or two every game. And that's just something.
Well, go ahead. I'm just going to say the question I've been asking for 2 weeks is who in this league feels great about their offensive line right now?
Oh, I mean, definitely. I mean, I still wouldn't feel good if I was Alabama because of that. I think LSU feels pretty good about what they're able to do up front. Arkansas has to feel better after tonight, but they still had a couple key mistakes there. It's there's not a whole lot of elite offensive line play out there right now, and we've talked about that. I mean, I think Florida's got to feel pretty good after what they did at full strength against Tennessee last week, running the ball down their throat, but they weren't real impressive tonight, not running the football. So it's going to be quite interesting. We've got LSU now second and goal, 25 seconds.
Arkansas is just daring them to go play action and give them some time with the way they've aligned the defense.
Well, if I was Arkansas, I would just let them score.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just part the sea and just let the guy go in the end zone, because you're not going to have any time otherwise, and they're going to kick a field goal.
How reliable is their kicker? We've seen some college kickers miss chip shots before in these spots.
Yeah, but this is really short. I mean, this is like extra point territory. I would
better make sure you've got the angle on that one, though.
Yeah, I would just, and I've done that before. When I was coaching, I used to coach high school ball for 10 years, and I was actually part of a team where we said, hey, let them score, because we didn't have any timeouts. They ran the ball in the end zone. We got it back, drove down the field and tied it up. So, I mean, it just happens that way sometimes. And the way KJ Jefferson's throwing the ball tonight, I mean, give him a shot to go down and try to tie it up. But yeah, this is not an ideal ending to an Arkansas team that has played really tough tonight. Played over at skis a little bit out here with not having Rocket Sanders on board with them. And you can see it's kind of setting in for KJ Jefferson right now. He's like, man, we did all that, and this is what it's going to come down to, a little chip field goal. So that is tough. It says Arkansas is struggling this is from John Blunt. Arkansas is struggling, but wow, the improvement from last week. Yeah, I do think you see improvement. You see growth. You see that what the wide receivers and the tight ends have emerged and made plays, Chris.
Wait, did LSU just use a second timeout right there?
They did. I don't know why, because it doesn't matter. The way that it's second down and that they have no timeout, so they could literally take a knee, take another timeout, and it's
second down. I was thinking it was third. Okay, that explains it a little bit more.
I would have let him score right there. I don't know what they're doing, because now they're going to kick a field goal and it's going to be over with. I would have just let him score, but that's why I'm here talking to you, Chris, and I'm not on Arkansas sideline. So
South Carolina's just tacked on a touchdown, I see on Game Tracker. So it is now up 37-27 with a little bit under 10 to play.
And we thought South Carolina, because that home environment, would win in Columbia, their night game, get it going. But I do think Mississippi State has acquitted itself nicely, especially Will Rogers bouncing back a little bit. But that South Carolina team plays well in Columbia.
Are they going to take the timeout and kick the field goal here? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They're going to go ahead and kick it, and this one probably going to end an LSU victory with, I guess by virtue of kicking a field goal, there'll be 7 or 8 seconds left. So we'll see if they could do a miracle, Arkansas. But other than that, you got to give Arkansas credit for going in there and playing tough, Chris.
No doubt. I didn't know if Arkansas had it in it this week, given last week, given the inavailability of Sanders and given who you're playing and where you're playing and when you're playing. But I think if you're Arkansas, you got to leave tonight feeling better about this.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. They were able to answer a couple questions, and I think when you get Rocket Sanders back, that changes the whole complexion of that offense for sure, because he's one of the better players in the SEC. It's kind of been disappointing that Rocket Sanders hadn't been available. Quinshot Judkins is clearly not himself still, Chris. So, I mean, it's just it's been a little disappointing on the running back front. Like you said, with the injuries, Georgia's got a slew of them. So got to get everybody back. Yeah, Justin, as Justin says, everybody hit that like button, subscribe. It's free. Join the membership though if you'd like to do so. That's not free, but it helps us make more videos for you, and we greatly appreciate it.
Oh, they did take a shot. Okay. But that was either you're going to catch it or it's going to go out of bounds. So that's a smart way to do it.
Absolutely. But now they got to execute the field goal. So here we go. We'll see what happens here, and it's probably kind of the tail end of of our stream here as LSU's getting ready to kick it. A little chippy right here from the left hash, or is that left middle?
I can't see.
Yeah, it's almost the left hash. They're doing the deal where and he made it. So he made the field goal, 5 seconds remaining. This one's going to end in an LSU victory. Most likely, I give Arkansas credit for really just coming in after a tough week, a tough loss, and just playing hard, man. I think that shows that they responded to what Sam Pittman was preaching, but LSU able to win a tough SEC game, which is not an easy thing to do these days, Chris, because the SEC is wild this year.
Yeah, I'm flipping over to South Carolina to keep an eye on that one. Let me know if Arkansas pulls a crazy kick return or something like that. But
yeah, we have seen crazier things happen before, but I mean, 5 seconds here is probably going to be one of those deals where they scoop it up and run it around and throw it all over the place. Tyler Sprouse says, hey, they showed some grit and they're playing like that after last week. No doubt. Arkansas did show grit and played really well.
Well, I think this is two teams that are going down in the nightcap that have to feel better even if they lose. We just talked about Arkansas, but Mississippi State, we looked at that team coming out of the LSU game, and we just said, hey, what is their offensive identity? Because they don't have one. They've gone away from Will Rogers. Tonight, Rogers is 21-29 for 386. Griffin is 256 yards receiving. Okay. I knew it was a lot. I had not checked the box on that yet. So I think at least if you're State, you can see a little bit of a path going forward after tonight. Now, I guess you're worried about the defense, which has been leakier than Zach Arnett would have liked, but at least on that side of the ball, you presumably would feel a little better about things.
Big showdown with Arkansas and Texas A&M next week in Jerry's World. That's a big one. Georgia goes to Auburn next week, Chris. LSU has to go on the road to Ole Miss. So can Ole Miss bounce back? Mississippi State gets to host Alabama. Let's see. Kentucky hosts Florida, so they get them at home. We'll be talking about that. Chris, Missouri goes to Vanderbilt, South Carolina at Tennessee, a revenge game for Tennessee after their season getting upended by South Carolina last year. So we'll be doing all those previews. We'll probably be recording them tomorrow night, trying to get them out Monday and Tuesday as we get into next week.
Yeah, only 7 games on the docket next week, which would be nice. Make for more and better football watching. It's so hard to keep track on everybody when you're having 14 different games involving SEC teams in week 1 and 11 or whatever it was last week and 9 this week. I'm looking forward to getting a better shot to watch a little bit of everybody because some of these games are coming and going, and I'm not watching more than a handful of plays in some of them. So,
oh yeah, it's going to be good to have it all inside the league. Andy Stowe said an update from outside. He said Notre Dame's about to punt, 140 left. They're up 14-10, so that's a good one outside the league there with Notre Dame and Ohio State. But Chris, anything you want to mention to the people that put in here before we sign off on our reaction stream here?
Well, out of conference, but the Oregon-Colorado game was kind of interesting today. The air came out of the Dion balloon there, and Dan Lanning had some pretty pointed comments, which was kind of funny. If you're Deion Sanders, you live by the sword and you die by it in terms of the verbal gymnastics that are played. So I thought that was kind of funny. I'm trying to think of things that really stood out to me. Again, I think that Alabama having some sort of an identity to me coming out of tonight, I feel like might end up being significant. I feel like Arkansas fighting back and being close in that game feels significant. I feel like LSU's inability to cover the passing game feels significant, even though LSU obviously winning that one tonight keeps them in the playoff chase. I have some doubts about that going forward, although, boy, Thomas and their downfield passing game have been just tremendous. Those kids are such a headache to cover.
Memphis is in a dogfight right now. It's
that's gotten close,
Missouri.
huh?
Yeah, it's 24-17, and Memphis is in Missouri territory. They're on the Missouri 16. But let's look at the box score once again for Brady Cook playing efficient football. He's a little hobbled tonight, but 17 of 24, 320 yards passing, Chris, 2 TDs, no interceptions. And I said, hey, you got to be able to run the football. Memphis gave up last week, I believe, 250 something yards rushing against Navy last week. And remember, Navy's not true triple option anymore. They're a little shotgun and all that kind of stuff. So I thought Missouri would be able to run the football a little bit better. Only 137 rushing tonight. Nathaniel Pete leads them with 64 yards. So that's definitely something that is, I think, a little bit concerning there. But can they hold on? I think that's kind of the big question that we leave everybody with here tonight, Chris.
Yeah, well, and 2 more things that we didn't really get into. Tennessee rushing for over 300 yards today, almost 10 a pop. Again, feels like Tennessee has gotten back to an identity. I don't know, and I didn't get to see any of that. Milton was 18 of 31 for 209. So continued.
Well, 80 of those rushing yards, I think, came on the first play by Joe Milton.
Yeah, I knew that, but I mean, those count. I mean, those are.
Oh, yeah.
That's part of a big total. But I guess what I was getting at is the passing. Looking at the box score wasn't super impressive today at 6.7 yards an attempt, but still, we knew Tennessee could run the ball. So I'm interested to see that. I feel like A&M winning today is significant. I felt like A&M would win, but the line on that was only 6. Again, as you pointed out, doing it with Max Johnson.
Well, it could have been a lot worse too.
Yeah.
A lot worse. Their first 2 drives, they got in the red zone and stalled out. They could have been up 14-0 right off the gate.
Yeah, and it's starting to feel like Auburn just doesn't have much for Hugh Freeze to work with offensively either. So,
nope, not much. But guys, we appreciate everybody tuning in. Like we said in here, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Send us super chats, all that kind of stuff. We're going to be recording our previews for week 5 with all the matchups we talked about just a little while ago. We'll be recording those Sunday night and getting them out to you on Monday and Tuesday. So this is the place if you want daily SEC coverage. I have my morning report, the SEC morning report, Monday through Thursday. Jake's takes on Friday. Chris Lee, Blake Lovell, Gavin Schoenwald. They have a daily show every single day. That is from 11 to 12 Central, 12 to 1 Eastern time every single day. And then on October 9th, for you basketball fans, Blake Lovell's starting a daily basketball show. So if you want SEC content and more of it than anybody else produces, this is the place, Chris.
Yeah, and just to that, we are going to be, you just touched on, we're going to be starting a daily basketball show. And we're not going to start it in January. We're going to be starting it right as conference play is actually before it, because we're going down to SEC Media Day for hoops. So we're going to be starting that very soon. That'll be in addition to our daily football show, which is about an hour. And guess what? When baseball season launches in February, we're going to be doing the same thing. We didn't do that last year. So if you just happen to be stumbling into our channel and checking us out tonight, that's how we're going to roll this year going forward.
Absolutely. Tyler, we appreciate you right back, man. Thank you so much. Y'all check out the link to CHOMPS in the description. You can get you a good snack over there, protein snack that helps out the channel as well. So check out CHOMPS. And then we've had a lot of emails here lately of people wanting to advertise here with us on the show. If you want to be a partner with Southeastern 14, you can see it scrolling across the bottom of your screen. Hit up caroline.smith at southeastern14.com, and hey, we'll work out a deal with you where you can be a MVP for us here, where we're able to promote your businesses and products. So thank you for everybody tuning in. That's Chris Lee. I'm Blayne Gilmer. This has been our reaction show to week 4. We got week 5 action coming up. So everybody stay tuned, and God bless. Enjoy your Sunday. We'll see you next week.